Every story has an author. Every author has a story. Join us for off-the-page interviews, inside stories, and a look into the world of publishing. This is Page Turners. Hi, welcome to Page Turners. I'm your host, Hilary Kennedy. And after working for 12 years as an engineer manager in corporate America, my guest today is now a serial entrepreneur who's founded 8 companies, including Teladoc, the world's largest telemedicine company. Michael Gorton has been a prolific writer, authoring technical articles on a wide range of topics, and he's written 5 novels, and his current book is a historical fiction entitled Forefathers and Founding Fathers. Michael, it is wonderful to have you here on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So now I understand that your book, Forefathers and Founding Fathers, this actually began as a family project.
It did.
So tell us how you're kind of linked to the main character in the evolution of writing this book.
Well, first of all, a little bit of history about how the book started. As a serial entrepreneur, sometimes you have years that are crazy busy. 2015 was that year for me. Thanksgiving, my daughter's home from Iowa State for Thanksgiving, and she said, "Dad, haven't seen a whole lot of you." And I said, "Let's do a project together over Christmas." So, okay, here's a book. And we decided to write it. 2 weeks into it, she said, "Dad, you're too intense. This is my break. I want to play." But the genesis of the book goes back to, now I grew up relatively poor, didn't know a whole lot about the family, but I had heard that we had a forefather who was always in trouble in the early colonies, getting kicked out of colonies, getting beaten publicly, and so that's when I started researching. That's what I thought. I was going to be writing just a little simple story about a man who was always in trouble.
And then it just snowballed from there.
It turned into the reason that he was always in trouble was very historic.
Well, so tell me a little bit about the historical accuracy of Forefathers and Founding Fathers.
Well, the good news today is you can get on the internet and you can find a birth record from the 1500s in central England. And so, if you start with something like that, then you begin to realize there are a tremendous number of resources. In the particular case of Samuel Gorton, the primary individual in this book, we have court cases where he was yelling at the judges, or the judges were admonishing him, so those records are still available, and you can find out exactly what they said to each other.
That is incredible that you can find that kind of information from that far back.
Right.
That is awesome. Well, so did you have a process for your character development, and writing the dialogue for historical figures, since we weren't around during that time to hear their conversations?
Well, we have a little bit of dialogue for some of the characters. And so my thinking was, if I study a character long enough, then I can take somebody that I know, and I never tell who it is, but I can take somebody who I know and say, this individual who I know well is kind of like this character in my book. And so when they're having conversations, I use, okay, what would that person say?
That makes sense. That makes it a lot easier when you've got that. So how long did it take you to actually write this book?
Oh, you're not going to believe me. 6 weeks, which is why my daughter said, "You're too intense, Dad."
Wow, so you were really passionate and focused about it.
I was just crazy driven, did some all-nighters, and
that is really fascinating. So you had actually self-published this book back in 2016. So why are you releasing it again now in 2018 with Brown Books?
Well, self-publishing is fun, and the goal with self-publishing was just so that I had printed copies that I could give to friends and family. When it started taking off is around the time that I met Millie, and Millie and I became kind of friends, and she read the book and she told me, we need to do something with this book. And so the vision that she had of bringing it into the school system and fixing it. Yes, I've written a couple of books, but I'm not really an author. I'm an entrepreneur. the work that Brown has done to improve that book has been phenomenal.
So it sounds like it's been a great experience.
It has been a great experience.
Well, so since this is historical, why do you think that children in school today would be interested in this book?
Oh, you know, there are so many hidden stories in American history about the roots of who we are and where we came from. I called it Forefathers and Founding Fathers for a host of reasons. So these guys are my forefathers, but in some cases, they are the forefathers of the people that we call the Founding Fathers. Mm-hmm. And so when you tie all those pieces together, there's so many great stories about, you know, why did George Washington do this, and why did Thomas Jefferson do that? And so those kind of hidden stories, and then we have a character that we'll talk a little bit about, Anne Hutchinson, who was a brilliant woman that would do well in today's society, much less in a society where women were not educated and weren't allowed to do anything.
Right. Wow. So it sounds like you're seeing a lot of the same traits in people today as you're seeing in your research for the book.
I am.
So do you have a favorite character from the book?
Do you have a favorite child?
You love them all?
That's really hard. You know, there are a couple of characters that I like because, you know, I feel a little bit they're somewhat like me. Mm-hmm. So Nathaniel Greene, who was a Revolutionary War general, people say he's the reason that the South was saved. Cornwallis was the British general during that time period, and everybody that George Washington sent to the South got wiped out by Cornwallis. Wow. And then he sent Nathaniel Greene, who had no military training but was a general, and Greene lost every battle against Cornwallis but ended up winning that side of the war. So if you can imagine that, you normally think of somebody as losing battles but winning the war. But,
right.
But every time he lost a battle, he compromised General Cornwallis and made his situation worse and worse and worse until Cornwallis was forced into Yorktown, where George Washington and the French all came together, and Cornwallis was forced to resign. And
I love these stories because they're, well, A, they're fascinating, but B, they're stories that you just don't hear. We're taught kind of the same stories over and over and over. So it's nice that you've uncovered these little nuggets that we don't get to hear about.
Much of the South knows Greenville, South Carolina. If there's a town in the South with the word green in it, it's probably named after Nathaniel Greene.
How interesting.
And so Greene is one of those great characters, but my main character, Samuel Gorton, is also very important because think about this. He's not wealthy, he's not poor, kind of in what we would call the middle class. He's got a decent job working in London with paved streets and a place where he can go to the market, and all of a sudden he decides he's going to go to the colonies. That's crazy, you know? There's no market and no paved streets and no home to move into. So
he's just going on a wild adventure and hoping it works out.
But don't we all, the kids, all of us, we all love that guy who had that spirit of adventure and came across on a boat, you know, where 100 people in the deck of a boat or in the hold of a boat, you know, no bathrooms, no showers.
No,
oh my
thank
gosh,
you.
Can you imagine that? It just seems terrible to think about.
Well, I love that you've uncovered so many of these fun and unique stories. It's been great talking to you today about your book. Yeah. And the next time we get together, we're going to delve into the themes and then the historical context of the book, and then discuss the parallels between some of these characters that faced these times in colonial America, and then just what's going on in our world today. Okay. So I can't wait to talk about it. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Well, and we hope that you'll join us next time as we delve more into Michael Gorton's book, Forefathers and Founding Fathers. We're going to get into some of the neat creative and historical context. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you next time on Page Turners.